Evening. We are today in the last day of the year for our studies. We are finishing the study of the Spirit's book, the last two items of the conclusion, items 8 and 9. And then when we start again on January 4th, we are going to present a special we are going to give a special talk on the Spirit's book, the introduction of the Spirit's book that we already presented a couple of times when we were about to start the book again. Okay, so it's item 8 of the conclusion of the Spirit's book. Philip.
Some ask whether spirits teach us anything new in relation to morality, anything greater than what Christ taught. If the Spirit's moral code is none other than that of the scriptures, does it serve any purpose? This method of reasoning is like that of Caliph Omar in speaking of the Library of Alexandria. If, he said, it contains only what is found in the Quran, it is useless, and in that case, it must be burned. If it contains anything that is not found in the Quran, it is bad, and in that case, it also must be burned. No, Spiritism does not preach a moral code that is different from that of Jesus. In turn, haven't the law of God already been given by Moses to humanity before the time of Christ? Is the doctrine embodied by the 10 Commandments not the same as Christ's? Has it ever been proposed that Jesus's moral teachings are useless because of this? To those who deny the usefulness of Spiritism, we ask the following question: why it is that Christ's moral teachings are so rarely practiced, and why is it that those who rightly praise their value are the first to violate his paramount law of universal charity? Not only do the spirits now confirm it, but they also show us its practical utility. They make clear and intelligible the truths that were previously taught as allegories. And alongside the eternal truths of morality, they also provide us with the solution to the most abstract psychological problems. Jesus came to show humanity the road to true goodness. Since God sent him to remind human beings of the divine law they had forgotten, why should God not send spirits to remind them again with greater precision now that they are forgetting it because they have sacrificed everything for pride and greed? Who would dare to take it upon oneself to limit God's power or to dictate divine ways? Who can say that the appointed time has not arrived, as declared by the spirits, when previously unknown or misunderstood truths must be openly made known to hasten humanity's advancement? Isn't there something evidently divine in the fact that spirit manifestations are occurring in every corner of the globe? It is not the case that a single person or prophet comes to enlighten us, but instead, it is the case that light is breaking all around and a new world is being unfurled right before our eyes. In the same manner that the invention of the microscope revealed an infinitely small world, the existence of which was unsuspected until then, and the telescope revealed thousands of worlds, the existence of which we never suspected, spirit communications today are revealing the existence of an invisible world surrounding us, a world that is incessantly in contact with us and that takes part in everything we do, completely unbeknownst to us. Soon the existence of that world, which is the ultimate destiny for all of us, will be as indisputable as the existence of both the microscopic world and the infinity of the universe. Is the revelation of a new world worth nothing? Is the introduction of the mysteries of life beyond the grave worthless? Granted, it is also true that these revelations, if they can be called such, conflict with certain established notions that we had, but haven't all great scientific discoveries changed and even rescinded ideas that were fully accepted worldwide? Were our pride not forced to yield to evidence, the same will happen with Spiritism, which will soon assume its place among the other branches of human knowledge. Our communications with the beings from the world beyond the grave enables us to see and understand our future life. They give us a taste for both the joys and sorrows that await us, depending on our merits, and bring spiritualism back to those who had reduced humanity to the status of an organized machine. We are therefore justified in asserting that the facts of Spiritism have effectively killed materialism. Had Spiritism done nothing more than this, it would be entitled to recognition, but it has done much more because it has shown the inevitable results of wrongdoing, and consequently the necessity of goodness. The number of people Spiritism has brought back to the propensity of goodness, whose bad inclinations were neutralized and whom it has turned away from wrongdoing, is already larger than assumed and continues to grow every day. The future is a fact, the reality of which is felt and understood when we see and hear those who have left us mourning or celebrating what they did when they were on earth. It is no longer vague or a mere hope. Everyone who witnesses these communications begins to reflect and feel the need for self-examination, self-judgment, and self-improvement.
So, on this conclusion, that Kardec is explaining the reasons, the importance of Spiritism, the reasons why Spiritism came to exist, and why the spirits have decided to bring these teachings. He also deals with the controversies and the opposition that came with Spiritism. And he starts this by saying that some people ask why, so if Spiritism is not bringing anything new, why does it come? Because if it came to expand on the teachings of Christ, we already have the teachings of Christ. Why do we need Spiritism? And Kardec compares this to this Caliph Omar, which was the final destroyer of the famous Library of Alexandria, which at one point contained everything that was the knowledge in the ancient world until the times of from the Egypt Empire to the Greek Empire. Under the different dominations, it was being destroyed for some by the Catholic, the Christians destroyed a part of it when they start finding things that didn't align with the teachings, what they believed, what were the teachings of Christ. And then this, as it says here in the note, the last person to be blamed for the burning of the Library of Alexandria was Caliph Omar. At the time the Muslims took the city of Alexandria. He ordered that the scrolls be used as tinder for the city's bathhouses. We discussed last week when we talked about the burning of the books of Spiritist books by the Bishop of Barcelona in 1861. That, you know, you cannot burn ideas, you cannot destroy knowledge that exists in people. Ideas will continue to come and will continue to spread. So a lot was lost in the burning of the Library of Alexandria, for sure, a lot of old texts, but you know, the archaeologists, the investigators, they keep finding new documents and learning more and more about our past, about the evolution of humanity. And now we have the spirits that brings us also the updated versions of the history of humanity, like Emmanuel did in the book On the Way to the Light, and some of the other books by Chico Xavier, from Brother X or Humberto de Campos, that tells the stories of the time of Jesus, some of the books of Divaldo Franco through his psychography. So, you know, the history of Earth is preserved, at least with the spirits, and they will tell us. Now, when we talk about Spiritism, we have to reflect on something. Jesus brought his teachings 2,000 years ago. And 2,000 years later, we still haven't been able to put in practice what he has taught us. And actually, what we did was distort and adapt to our conveniences the teachings of Jesus, and used the religion to persecute, to kill, to burn, to persecute other religions. So clearly, we need refresh courses on the teachings of Christ. When Martin Luther brought the seeds of the Reform in the 16th century, it was a rebellion against what the Catholic Church was doing, which was basically to sell a place on heaven, to persecute with the Crusades, with the Inquisition that lasted until the end of the 19th century. So the fact that Spiritism doesn't, as he says here, doesn't preach a moral code that is different from that of Jesus, doesn't mean that it shouldn't have been brought, because we haven't learned the moral code, the teachings of Jesus. We still are struggling with it, right? And we see nowadays, this was written 170 years ago, and we still see nowadays the religious sects fighting against each other. I was just reading an article, one of the largest Protestant churches in the United States, the Methodist Church, one of the branches, the second largest one in the United States, lost a quarter of its members in the past 3-4 years because of differences of opinion related to homosexuality, basically. So, you know, if we can't yet learn to forgive each other, accept each other by what they believe and what they preach, respect, then yes, we need Spiritism, and we may need more refresh courses, because clearly we are still struggling. Jesus said at his time, I didn't come to contradict the law. I came to enhance the teachings brought by Moses. So the 10 commandments by Moses, Jesus didn't say anything against any of the 10 commandments. Actually, he expanded on the 10 commandments, on the necessity of love God above all, love one another, right? So would we say that Jesus didn't need to bring his teachings because Moses already brought the moral codes? Well, the Jewish people still fight until today. In the good sense, I'm not talking here about fights, physical fights, but in the discussions, because in Judaism, what they do amongst them and the rabbis and everything is to discuss the commandments and to interpret the commandments and to interpret the consequences of the commandments. And they disagree a lot, and that's why they have different followers, different rabbis, more conservative, more liberal. Amongst the Jewish, you have the ultra-Orthodox, you have the Orthodox, you have the liberal. So, they have been doing this for 4,500 years. Jesus came 2,000 years after Moses, more or less, gave us the teachings that tells us basically, to love one another. And he didn't say love one another, just your family, your friends, and those that think like you. He said, love one another independently of how they behave, think, or act. Forgive your enemies. And we are still not able to live with the teachings of Jesus. And Kardec says here, why is it that Christ's moral teachings are so rarely practiced? So the spirits come to confirm, and the spirits come to expand. What the spirits brought to us was the concept of the ability of communication between the physical world and the spiritual world, which always existed also. It's not something that Spiritism discovered. Spiritism didn't discover anything, but it expanded and instructed on us how to deal with it, right? How to approach correctly the communications with the spiritual world. Spiritism brought us the concept of reincarnation explained. Reincarnation existed in the Eastern beliefs since ancient times, way before Jesus. Jesus brought the concept of reincarnation. It wasn't called reincarnation, as I said here a couple of weeks ago. The name reincarnation was introduced in the literature in the beginning of the 19th century. Some people say it was by Kardec, but we don't have any proof of that. But it didn't exist before the 19th century. But the term resurrection was common, and everybody used it. Started when Jesus so-called resurrected and appeared to his apostles. So Kardec continues talking about Jesus coming to us, showing humanity the road to true goodness. And he says, who are we to go against the God's laws? Who are we to say that when it's the right time to bring more knowledge to humanity? So if Spiritism is bringing more knowledge, more understanding, and again, if Spiritism helps us to be better individuals, better spirits than we were before, then it's serving its purpose. The advances that Spiritism brought, it takes time for it to take hold. We know that still it's a large minority of the world that accepts spirit communications, and not only spiritism, but in spiritualism and other places that spirit communicates. It's widespread in terms of it's found everywhere, but it's the minority. So it is still, we still have a long way to go. But Kardec asked, is the instructions of the mysteries of life beyond the grave worthless? You know, we need to be very hard-headed to deny that if there is something for us to learn, why can't we learn from those that already went back to the spiritual world? For us to deny their existence is to, you know, to refuse to accept the reality. And we discussed this last week, right? When we talked about the opposers of spiritism that had different categories, and those that refuse because they just don't believe, those that are very comfortable in their own beliefs to accept anything different, and those that are afraid of embracing something new. But, you know, like Kardec said, and we discussed last week, Spiritism has come, has brought literature, has brought new ideas, new thoughts, and slowly they're going to spread and they're going to be embraced, because spirits from the spiritual world will continue giving communications, will continue giving us teachings from the spiritual world. And as Kardec finishes here, said, the future is a fact, the reality which is felt and understood when we see and hear those who have left us mourning or celebrating what they did when they were on earth. It's no longer vague or a mere hope. It's here. Anyone can find, anyone can see and read. You just need to want to, right? And that's an individual choice for all spirits that are here incarnated, and spirits, even those that are discarnated, and also some of them refuse to accept. Okay?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the moral features of Christ, it's a very weak, narrow-minded argument. Progress is done by repetition of the same subject, and the more we progress, the more we evaluate that subject, you discover new things, you learn better from this. So you may be studying the human body for millennia, and the more you progress, the better you understand that human body. So all sciences will repeatedly study a subject and learn more and more from it. Jesus himself told us that was not enough. He told us that I will send a consoler, because the consoler will remind you of things that you forget, and will bring to you things that I cannot bring now because you are not ready. So Jesus himself announced and told us, wait for the right time when there will be a third revelation. So spiritism is absolutely necessary according to Jesus himself. And when it comes to the scientific aspect of the doctrine, any individual who is seeking to understand oneself better would welcome to a new science that reveals our spiritual nature, that explains the possibility, not only the possibility, but the communicability between the two realms of our existence. As well said, one needs to be open-minded, one must be a free thinker to go and search for those things and answers all the perennial questions in philosophically speaking. What are we? What are we doing here? Where do we go from here? What is the reason all of this? It's all explained in Spiritism. So the individual who likes to think, who likes knowledge, a philosopher by definition, will appreciate the doctrine. But again, it's not for narrow minds yet. And it will never be for narrow minds.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, the last one. We are closing the Spirit's book with conclusion number 9.
Opponents of Spiritism.
I just want to make a comment. I think it was that analogy about the telescope and the microscope. I think that was awesome. I think it was excellent. That parallelism between Spiritism, telescope, and microscope, that was, wow, an eye-opener.
Yes, it's very interesting, right?
Yes.
The invention of microscope revealed an infinitely small world.
And the telescope,
No, we found out about many diseases with the microscope, right? And the telescope revealed many things. Yeah, that we're not the center of the universe, that the sun is not the center of the universe, that our galaxy is not the center of the universe, and so on and so forth, right? So again, the church refused to accept it, and even burned, though Galileo tried to burn Galileo, burned Copernicus, because they said that the Earth was not the center of the universe, which is, again, shows the narrow-minded ideas that we got stuck. We stuck ourselves with the religious dogmas and narrow-minded beliefs, right?
I don't know if it's, I don't know, I question whether it's because narrow-mindedness or it's because they want to hold on to power and control.
Yes,
It's one of the same.
Yeah.
It's one of
Yeah, in the end, I almost say it's one and the same, which is, for you to control, you have to prevent others from expanding their ideas and their beliefs, right? You have to conform everyone, and it's still done up to today, right? In the countries where they persecute for political reasons the adversaries, it's because they believe in different things. We haven't stopped doing that, and I think we're still a long way from stopping it, right? To religious persecutions, political persecutions, gender persecutions, and race persecutions, all types of discriminations are still present in our daily lives. The difference is that more and more people are against it. In the past, you couldn't talk against it. Nowadays, more and more you can fight, and the number of people that are fighting against all sorts of discrimination is growing. It will continue to grow. Like Elmo says, right? Everyone goes back to the spiritual world with their backward ideas, and eventually they'll go back to the spiritual world, and eventually they'll have to change. Okay.
Opponents of Spiritism have used the differences of opinions among Spiritists on certain doctrinal points as weapons against it. It is not surprising that at the beginning of a new science, when the preliminary observations are still incomplete, the subject is analyzed from different perspectives, and that contradictory theories are then put forward. Nonetheless, a thorough study of the facts in question has already deflated 3/4 of such theories, starting with that which attributes all spirit communications to bad spirits, as though it were impossible for God to send good spirits. This theory is absurd because it contradicts the facts, and blasphemous because it denies God's power and goodness. The spirits have always advised us not to worry about the differences of opinions existing among spiritists, assuring us that harmony will eventually reign. Now, we see that this harmony with respect to most of the points at issue has already been established, and that the remaining conflicting opinions are disappearing day by day. To the question, while weighting the establishment of harmony upon what basis can impartial and fair-minded individual form an opinion regarding the relative merits of the various theories suggested by spirits? The following reply was given. The purest light is not obscured by any cloud. The most precious diamond is the one that is flawless. Judge the spirits based on the purity of their teachings. Do not forget that there are many who have not yet freed themselves from their earthly ideas. Learn to distinguish them by their language. Judge them by the sum total of what they say. See whether there is a logical sequence in their ideas. Verify that nothing betrays ignorance, pride, or malice. Ultimately, if their communications always bear the stamp of wisdom, it is proof of true superiority. If errors did not exist in your world, it would be perfect, but it is far from being so. You still have to learn to distinguish error from truth and need experience to exercise your judgment in order to advance. Harmony is achieved when good is not mixed with inequity and when people rally spontaneously to that principle, because they consider it to be the truth. Moreover, never mind a few dissidents whose objections are more informed than in depth. Observe that the fundamental principles are the same everywhere and should unite you all in a common bond, the love of God and the practice of goodness. Regardless of the method of projection and the normal conditions of your future existence, the ultimate goal is still the same, to do right, and there are not two ways of doing it. There may be differences of opinion among spiritists about a few theoretical points. However, all of them agree on the fundamental principles. Harmony already exists among them, with the exception of a very small number of people who do not yet admit the participation of spirits in the manifestations. They attribute them to either purely physical causes, which contradicts the fundamental spiritist assertion that every intelligent effect must have an intelligent cause, or to the reflection of our own thought, which is disproved by the facts. The other points are merely secondary and have nothing to do with the essential core. So there may be schools that seek to illuminate the still controversial parts of science, but there must not be rival sects. Opposition should only exist between those who desire good and those who desire to do bad. A person who sincerely adopts the moral principles established by Spiritism can neither desire wickedness nor wish ill upon his or her neighbor, regardless of opinion. If any school of thought is wrong, enlightenment will come soon enough if its practitioners want it honestly without clutching to preconceived notions. In the meantime, everyone has a common bond that should unite all in the same sentiment. They all have a common goal, and the road traveled is irrelevant, provided it leads to the same destination. No one should attempt to force their opinion upon others, whether pertaining to physical or moral constraints, and anyone who would hurl insults or curses at another would clearly be in the wrong, obviously acting under the influence of bad spirits. Reason is the best argument, and moderation does more to ensure the triumph of the truth than attacks tainted by envy and jealousy. Good spirits exhort us to strive to live in harmony and to learn to love our neighbor, and nothing
malicious or uncharitable. It's on the top.
or uncharitable can ever come from a pure source. In this regard, and as a fitting conclusion to this book, we share the following words from the Spirit St. Augustine. Human beings have torn one another to shreds for long enough, cursing each other in the name of peaceful and merciful God, whom they insult by committing such a sacrilege. Spiritism is the link that will one day form a bond between them by showing what is truth and what is error. However, there will still be scribes and Pharisees who will reject it for a very long time, exactly as they rejected Christ. Would you like to know what spirits influence the various groups dividing the current inhabitants of this world? Judge them by their deeds and principles. Good spirits never incite evil. They never advise or condone murder and violence. They never stimulate hatred, thirst, or wealth and honors, or greed for earthly possessions. Those who are kind, humane, and compassionate to all are not only friends of good spirits, but Jesus as well, because they are following the road that he has shown will lead to him, St. Augustine.
Thanks, David. So Kardec starts by talking about the opponents of Spiritism that have difference of opinions amongst themselves on certain doctrinal points, use it, and they used as weapons against Spiritism, right? The sense that if you cannot agree amongst yourselves, why should we try to learn what you are teaching? And what Kardec is telling us here is, first, everything new comes with a lot of controversies and a lot of different opinions, right? We are all imperfect spirits, so we approach at the fact from different angles, right? It reminds me of a story of the elephant, right? You put 4 blind people around an elephant and ask them to describe what they are touching, and they will give 4 completely different descriptions of an elephant that they are all correct, but are different from each other. But, you know, if we don't fully agree on the spiritual realms in the spiritual world, in where is the lower zones, or what's the difference between lower zones, no solar, and higher zones, and different classes of spirits, we agree that we all have to agree that Spiritism came to try to make us better spirits through our moral and intellectual evolution. So we can disagree on the periphery of the teachings, but we cannot disagree on the fundamentals, which is, you know, the communication from the spirits exists. Reincarnation, it's a fact. Mediums exist and are able to communicate with the spiritual world. The teachings of Jesus were expanded by Spiritism, but always trying to make us closer to God through our evolutionary path. So all the basic facts of Spiritism they do not conflict. Now, of course, with the amount of teachings that Spiritism brings to us, and the amount of different concepts, we are here, we study the Spirit's book, we are finishing it for the 7th or 8th time, right? And every time we start and we go through the questions, we find new things, new theories. I actually sent Elmo today something that I found in the Spiritist Review of 1866, that Kardec expands on the concept of us remembering everything when we go back to the spiritual world, which is what we find in the Spirit's book on question 243. Kardec says, you know, the Spirit's book was the beginning, was the introduction. We need to expand on it. So we need to understand that depending on the level of evolution of the spirit, they remember more or less of their previous existences. This was 1866. André Luiz brings a lot more information through the books of Francisco Xavier, through the mediumship of Francisco Xavier, expanding on the notions that we actually mostly remember our incarnation that we just left, and we have flashes of other incarnations. So again, if we don't agree of how much spirits remember or don't remember, and what type of spirits remember, and these are again not fundamental aspects of spiritism. If we disagree that communications are possible or not possible from spirits, then we are disagreeing on a fundamental point of spiritism. But the contradictions actually are important for us to learn and to evolve and to search for the truth. And again, I mentioned the Jewish tradition of the rabbis discussing and the scholars discussing amongst them the commandments and interpreting and learning from it. Why they do that? Because that's what's important for all of us to grow and to evolve. And when Kardec asked the spirits, what should we do while awaiting the establishment of harmony, right? The answer from the spirits, the purest light is not obscured by any cloud. The most precious diamond is the one that is flawless. Judge the spirits based on the purity of their teachings. We receive communications from the spirits, and we sometimes have a hard time interpreting these communications because we are not, of course, not the imperfect spirits. We can misinterpret the spirits and maybe think that a message comes from an evolved spirit, and in the end, it hasn't. But if we stick to the message and we try to understand and read the message and see if the message help us and help humanity in the sense of growing and evolving, it teaches us to love one another, to learn from our mistakes, to not get stuck with our own imperfections, to move forward. The messages, again, that build our character and our moral abilities are messages that come from at least spirits more evolved than we are. Again, we don't expect all the messages to come from perfect spirits because we don't need that. We just need to receive messages from spirits that are more evolved than us. They are also learning, right? So again, one thing that Kardec taught us is the universality of the communications from the spirits. So if one spirit says one thing that is his or her opinion, and it's not heard from any other spirits, we should leave it aside and wait for a confirmation, right? This week, someone asked me a question that he found on the posthumous works, and the answer that I gave him was, I'm not sure if this is what Kardec meant. Let's leave it aside until we find more information and more confirmations, right? So it's not to discard, but it's not to embrace everything that comes from spirits. The same way that not all spirits that communicate are evil, like some people think, and the Kardec addresses it will be to deny God's power and goodness, right? How come only bad spirits can communicate? What do they have that good spirits don't have? Something doesn't make sense in the basis of this concept, right? I find it more logic that to think that only good spirits can communicate with some spiritualists believe. Again, it's not right because any spirit can communicate. But to think that only bad spirits can communicate, for me, is worse than think that only good spirits can communicate. Because only good spirits, at least, God allows good spirits to communicate, doesn't allow evil spirits to communicate. It would theoretically make more sense to me, but we know that's not the truth. All spirits communicate, good, bad, average. It's just a matter of connecting with a medium that is willing to receive the communications. So Kardec continues talking about the differences of opinion in theoretical points, what we discussed, right? But he goes back to every intelligent effect must have an intelligent cause, right? So we discussed also this when we were discussing the Medium's book on Sunday, right? If you want to discuss the communications that Chico Xavier received, person that barely finished primary school and received messages from very complex scientific, religious, and philosophical opinions, books on the history of humanity in the times of the Romans, in time of Jesus, it's what's easier to think that this person has a very active imagination and is capable of writing 1,000 different subjects, or the simplest answer, which is there are spirits with different knowledge and different understanding of different areas of humanity that are communicating through this medium that is just a vessel, an instrument, right? Again, Spirit asks us to be reasonable, to think logically, and to conclude things according to our logic. And if something doesn't make sense or something looks still not clear, let's leave it aside and wait for the right time to come. And then to finish the Spirit's book, we have this beautiful message from St. Augustine, reminding us that we have been killing each other and persecuting each other for long enough in the name of a peaceful and merciful God. If we believe that God is all-powerful, all-just, and all-goodness, then God doesn't take sides. We are all children of God, and we are all the same. So, to persecute someone because it doesn't believe in God, or believe in God in a different way than we do, or believe in a God with a different name and decides not to call God God, again, it shows our inferiority and our lack of understanding of the teachings of Christ, of God, of Moses, of all the teachings that came to us saying that, we need to love one another, and we need to love our enemies and love all those that have different opinions. And St. Augustine finishes by saying, judge them by their deeds and principles. Good spirits never incite evil. So, whenever you see someone doing something that goes against goodness, against the natural laws, God's law, we know that they cannot be influenced in those actions by good spirits. Good spirits will never advise or condone murder and violence. Never stimulate hatred, thirst for wealth and honors, and greed for earthly possessions. So, all those that are still chasing these material possessions, spiritual deviations from God's law, are influenced by spirits that associate with them for their inferior tendencies. Those who are kind, humane, and compassionate to all are not only friends of good spirits, but Jesus as well, because they are following the road that has shown will lead to him. That is the last words of the book, the Spirit's book, and we finish on this upbeat note from St. Augustine for us to reflect. How are we using our time, our thoughts, and our opinions? Are we using them to build something or to oppose and destroy something? And, it calls us to reflect on it and for us to continue our journey of moral and intellectual evolution. We go back to the beginning of the Spirit's book and start all over again, because we have to repeat it until we learn it, and we haven't learned yet. So let's start all over again next year. Okay. Any final comments, questions here?
When is our next meeting?
Now, the next meeting is 2 weeks from today, January 4th. So we won't have one Thursday, which is 28th. We won't have meeting next Thursday, 28th. We'll reconvene on January 4th. SGNY will be closed from today until January 2nd, when it reopens with Spiritism at noon. So we'll be closed for 2 Mondays, 2 Sundays, 2 Mondays, 1 Tuesday, and 1 Thursday. Okay? The talks by the United States Spiritist Federation will also not happen in the next couple of Saturdays, tomorrow or this Saturday and next Saturday. So we'll resume on January 6th. Okay? We thank you all for the year that you have been with us, for being present and studying with us. And I'm going to ask Elmo to do our final prayer. Okay?
How long did it take us to finish the book? How many
Sorry?
how long did it take us to complete the book? Do you know? Can you go back in time?
We started in the middle of the pandemic, so we probably started somewhere 2021. I can give you I have all the recordings, so I have to go back and check. But I believe we started somewhere in 2021. I think.
So it took about a year and a half.
Probably a couple of years, I think, maybe. I have to look at it.
21, 22, 23. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, a couple of years, I believe.
Yeah.
But I'll give this answer next time we meet here. When I introduce the Spirit's book again, I'll make sure I look for it to see how long it took us to.
Yeah, because we've done it many times. Yeah.
Yes, we did a good 8 times or something like that. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Can everyone hear me well there?
Yes?
Yeah. Now, yes.
It is with humbleness, with sincere gratitude in our hearts, with a sentiment of good pride and joy, that we unite ourselves with our good spirits to give thanks to our Master Jesus Christ for bringing to us his promised consoler, to illuminate the pathway that leads to our happiness, to provide to us with all the tools required for us to stay in the right path, to be able to resist, to deviate from it, to provide to us a means to return to the right path when we fall. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors, the true workers of this house, for all of the patience and tolerance towards our difficulties, to guide us, to come to our home on the day of studies, to inspire us to understand all that this doctrine has to share, has to offer us. As we are ready to celebrate the birth date of Jesus Christ, we are reminded that the Master came to renew our hope and our faith, to bring us the new paradigm of love, justice, and forgiveness. So we do renew in Christ's faith on his teachings, on the light of his gospel, with the peace that he lives for us, that we will exercise peace amongst ourselves, that we will maintain peace in our own heart. And in this way, we will contribute for peace amongst all peoples, in the name of our Master Jesus Christ. We ask the good benefactors be with us throughout 2024, that we may be with them as much as they are with us, that we may continue to study, that we may continue to work, that may continue to resist, to act in inferior tendencies, that may continue with faith and hope for better days. May we be protected. May our loved ones in the physical and the spiritual world be protected and guided. May we count on one another. May we count above all things with our Master, who is ready and willing to rescue us. With this in mind, to ask permission to end this meeting, so be it.